We're going to take a look at editing this photo. It's always pretty tough with very bright snowy scenes and a dark figure in the middle. The camera makes its best guess, but it's quite difficult for the camera to decide what the best exposure is without blowing out the exposure on the snow, or in this case making the figure a bit darker. So what we're going to do is to edit each part of the photo separately. So let's use the selection brush, which is up here, and we can set the size of it. We can set the size of it here, but we need a fairly small brush for this. We can zoom in by doing Control+, and let's just click and drag the selection brush over the figure. Now we've got snap to edges ticked, so it jumps straight away to try and do its best guess to where the edges are. It's just overrun a bit here, so that's no problem. We can just paint that out by holding down the Alt key and paint over these bits. We don't need to be too choosy because it's a fairly busy background, so it doesn't matter if a few bits are left in. But when we've pretty much got it there, we can refine the edge, and that means try and make the edge a bit more accurate. So if we click on Refine, we get this drop down here, and it's best to just feather the edge just the tiniest little bit. That avoids the razor sharp edge, which can look a bit artificial, and we can just smooth it by the tiniest bit as well. So if we smooth it about the same amount, and once we've done that, if we just run over the edges with this brush, it just reminds the selection what it is that we're trying to isolate. We just run right round, and here it'll pick out the furry bits on the hood. So go right round, and when we get to the end, just give it a second to think about it, then click Apply. Now there's one or two little bits here we can see have just overrun, so again hold down the Alt key and just click and paint over that bit and paint over that bit. Now whilst we've got the figure selected, we can use any of these adjustments here. So for the moment let's just stick with brightness and contrast. Click on that, and you can see that it's just affecting the figure and nothing else. So just up the brightness a wee bit and up the contrast a bit to make it reasonably realistic. That's maybe just a bit over the top. Anyway, you can play about with these as much as you want until you get the effect that you want. And when you've done that, click on Merge. So that's done the correction on the figure. And now if we want to just adjust the snow a little bit, if we go up here to Select, and we want to invert the pixel selection, that means now it's picking up everything on the outside. Let's just zoom out again, and then we can see these little moving dots. They call these the marching ants. The marching ants are now around the outside. So all this section here is selected and not the figure. So with any landscape, it's almost always worth going to Filters, Haze Removal. This takes away any of the haze from a long shot, although this is quite a clear photo. You'll see, if we click the haze, you'll see the mountains suddenly become a little bit clearer. And it's bringing out the sky a little bit. With this drop down, we can adjust the strength. So without going totally over the top, we can bring the sky out a little bit. Exposure correction just makes it lighter or darker. Well, it's a very bright lit scene, so we can more or less leave that where it was. And when we've got that how we want it, we click apply. And now to get rid of the marching ants, we do Control and D for deselect. So there's the picture. We could just do with sharpening it just a tiny little bit. If we go to Filters, Sharpen and select Clarity, could you see the snow come popping out there? I'll just turn this down and up so you can see how it's really affecting the snow. So without being too over the top, we can just make it that little bit sharper to give it more texture, and that's more or less the picture. Now with any photo, any picture, any painting, any drawing, it's never a good idea to have the subject right in the middle. So let's just go to the crop tool here. We have different methods of cropping, but let's just stay with the default, and we can drag these sidebars in to where we want. And if we just get the figure more or less on the 1/3 line, we'll just come down the tiniest bit to get the face on the 1/3 line up and down. So the face is on this line and the body is close to this line. And when we've got it how we want, click return, and that's a pretty good shot at your photo. Now if you want to save this particular file, if you want to work on it some more, then go to File, Save As, and that lets you save this as a very big file. This is no good for putting on Facebook or for doing photographs because it's a very big file. But if you want to save that, you can save it where you want. And then if you want to put it on Facebook or indeed to print it, then turn it into what's called a JPEG. So if we go File, Export, it gives us a choice of all these different types of files. So for now, just stick to JPEG. You can select the quality, which affects the size of the file, but we'll just leave it on the default for the moment, and make sure JPEG is selected and click Export, and you can save that to wherever you want. And that's a good format now for uploading to Facebook or for printing or doing a photo book. So that's about it for this one. Hope you found something useful in that, and let me know if you have any questions.